He kicked me out, then found my letter a year later. When my dad kicked me out at 17, I promised myself I'd never go back. He said I was ungrateful, lazy, that I'd never make it without him. I left with one duffel bag and $20 in my pocket. For months, I slept on my friend's couch, worked 2 jobs, and saved every dollar I could. Every night, I wrote letters to him. I never sent angry ones, sad ones that said I still love you even though you broke me. A year later, my sister called. Her voice was shaking. Dad's in the hospital. I swore I wouldn't go, but I did. When I walked in, he looked smaller. We just stared at each other for a long time, no words, just years of silence sitting between us. Then he said, "I found your letters." I froze. I'd left them in my old room, under the loose floorboard. He said he'd read every single one, every word I wished he'd heard when I still lived there. His voice cracked when he said, "I didn't know how much I hurt you." I wanted to stay angry. I wanted to remind him what it felt like to be thrown away, but instead, I just held his hand. Sometimes love isn't forgiveness, it's just not walking away this time. I never thought I'd see the day I'd stand in my father's study, staring at the stack of letters he left behind. Each envelope was marked with a name. My name, my siblings' names. My heart raced. I'd spent my entire life running from him, from the man who hurt me, and my mom, the man who taught me to fear the sound of his footsteps. Now, the truth was here, waiting for me. I arrived at the hospital, my hands trembling. Dad's room smelled like antiseptic and old leather. He was smaller somehow, frailer than I remembered. He didn't look up when I entered. My sister whispered, "He doesn't have much time." I swallowed hard. Years of anger and pain surged through me. Could I forgive him? Could I even speak to him? My throat felt dry, my heart a war zone. Dad's eyes met mine, dull and tired, yet flickering with recognition. "Thomas," he croaked. The name sounded foreign, twisted on his lips. I wanted to shout, to ask why he had made our lives hell. But something in his gaze stopped me. It was fear now, fear and regret. The man who had towered over me, who had made my childhood a nightmare, was now vulnerable, powerless, human. I sat beside his bed, the hum of the monitors echoing in my ears. Memories flashed: my mother's cries, the bruises I tried to hide from my siblings, the nights I stayed awake praying he wouldn't come home drunk and angry. And yet, seeing him like this, helpless, I felt an unfamiliar pang of sorrow. Could I hate him when death was finally this close? Dad coughed violently, and I handed him a glass of water. "I'm sorry," he rasped. I froze. The words were simple, yet they carried years of weight. All those nights, he'd been cruel. All the times he destroyed our happiness, he finally said the one thing that had been impossible to hear. My chest tightened. I didn't know if I could forgive him, but I knew something inside me had shifted. Sister whispered that his time was near. I nodded, feeling a strange calmness. The room was quiet except for the steady beep of the machines. I realized he wasn't the monster I had imagined as a child. He was a broken man, carrying the same pain he inflicted on us. My anger hadn't vanished, but it had transformed into clarity. I wasn't the scared child anymore. I was his reckoning. As the day turned into evening, I read the letters. Dad had written them years ago, expecting he'd never have a chance to say what he really felt. In my envelope, he confessed everything: the mistakes, the regrets, the times he wished he had been better. My hands shook. I never thought I'd hold his truth in my hands. My childhood shattered and rebuilt itself in a single moment. I looked at him again. His breathing was shallow. I wanted to yell, to demand more explanations, more apologies, but I didn't. Instead, I whispered, "I hear you." He blinked slowly, a faint smile crossing his face, almost imperceptible. I realized then that forgiveness wasn't about letting him off the hook. It was about freeing myself from the chains he had wrapped around my soul. Hours passed. The room grew quiet. I held his hand, feeling the frailty of his bones. The man who had once ruled our home with fear was now silent, reliant on me for a sip of water, a touch of comfort. And in that moment, I understood life differently. Power wasn't about domination. Love wasn't about perfection. Pain wasn't forever. Change was. When he finally passed, I felt a mix of grief, relief, and exhaustion. My mother cried softly. My siblings hugged me. But I stayed in the corner for a moment longer, holding on to the last bit of him. In the end, the man I feared was gone. But he had left me something more valuable than vengeance or anger. He left me the chance to heal, to rise, to become the person I was always meant to be. Weeks after the funeral, I discovered my father had left me a series of journals. They detailed moments I never knew. He remembered my first steps, the fights he regretted, my victories in school. Every page was laced with remorse and something fragile I didn't expect: love. My hands shook reading them. For the first time, I realized he had never hated me. He had hated himself. But family isn't just forgiveness, it's confrontation. My siblings had grown cold, distant. They had memories of Dad's anger, but none of my survival. I tried to reach them, to explain, to share these journals. They laughed at the idea that our father could feel guilt, that he could admit wrongdoing. Their voices were sharp, cutting. "You always had it easy," they said. That one sentence echoed like a slap to my face. I left the house, slamming the door behind me. I realized surviving him had shaped me into someone stronger, someone they could never understand. Alone, walking through the empty streets, I let myself finally breathe. The years of fear, anger, and doubt were dissolving, leaving only clarity. Dad's death wasn't just an ending, it was the beginning of reclaiming my life. Months later, I gathered the courage to confront my siblings one last time. I brought the journals, opened them for them to see the man they thought they knew. "This was your father," I said, "and this is who he really was." Some pages made them shift uncomfortably. Some pages made them angry. They refused to believe his remorse was genuine. But I did, and that was enough. I've built my own life now, separate from their bitterness. I speak to my mother daily, sharing memories that are ours. I think of Dad often not with fear, not with anger, but with understanding. He taught me how to survive, how to fight, how to feel, even if it was too late for him to do it properly. And somewhere in all that chaos, I found peace. The story doesn't end with him or my siblings. It ends with me. I am no longer the scared child hiding in corners. I am the adult who can forgive, who can see humanity in the flawed, who can rise above what tried to break me. And though the scars remain, they are no longer chains, they are proof that I endured, that I survived, and that I can love, even when it hurts. I started reading more of Dad's journals, and one entry stopped me cold. He wrote about the day he hit me when I was 10, the day my mother cried silently in the kitchen while I tried to protect my siblings. He admitted it was a breaking point for him, that he had wanted to change but didn't know how. My hand shook. For the first time, I could almost feel the child in him, the man he wanted to be. That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed every argument, every fight, every bruise in my mind. And I realized something terrifying. The cycle could have continued if I hadn't learned to fight back. My anger, my fear, my rage, they were survival tools. And now, as an adult, I could choose what to do with them. I could either let them control me or shape the person I was becoming. I called my mother. We spoke for hours, and for the first time, we weren't mother and son in survival mode. We were two humans trying to process decades of trauma. She cried openly now, telling me things she had never said before. How she had hated that she couldn't protect us. How she had loved Dad despite everything. And I let myself cry to hard, honest tears. My siblings, however, refused to see the truth. They mocked my interpretations of the journals. Dad was just trying to scare us into respect, Cameron said, his voice slick with arrogance. I laughed bitterly. Respect, that was fear disguised as authority. I realized then that they weren't my family, they were strangers wearing familiar faces. My loyalty to them had been a mistake. I moved out of the family home, carrying the journals with me. I needed space to breathe, to process, to exist without fear. My apartment was small, but it was mine. I decorated it with pieces of freedom, pictures of my mother smiling, books I had never been allowed to read as a kid, and a window that let me see the stars at night without dread. For the first time, I felt safe. Months passed. I started therapy, diving into memories I had suppressed. Every session was painful. Every story like tearing off a scab I thought had healed. But each session also built me up. I learned that I could confront my pain without letting it control me. I could feel anger without it consuming me. And I could remember Dad not just for his cruelty, but for the lessons his failures taught me. One day, I got a call from my sister Juliana. Her voice was hesitant, fragile. "Thomas, I found the journals," she said. My heart raced. Had she finally come to understand? Or was this another attempt to manipulate me? I listened carefully as she confessed that she had read some entries late at night and realized how wrong we had all been about Dad. I didn't respond immediately. I wanted to hear everything. She admitted she envied me for surviving, for being the one Dad had feared would one day see the truth. Cameron called her a coward for even reading the journals, but Juliana had shaken herself awake. She said, "I never realized he loved us, even if he was broken. And I never realized what I was doing to you." For the first time, I saw the human in her, the sibling I could have had if fear hadn't ruled our lives. That night, I went to my mother's house. We sat at the kitchen table, sipping tea, the journals spread out like relics. She touched my hand and said, "He would have wanted you to forgive, Thomas. Not for him, but for yourself." I nodded. I had spent so long hating, so long surviving. Now I understood. Forgiveness wasn't about erasing pain, it was about reclaiming my life from it. Years later, I visited Dad's grave. I knelt, placing a small stone on it. I survived. I whispered. I learned. I'm living. I felt the sun on my face, warm, forgiving, and I realized that I had become the adult I needed as a child. The one who protected my siblings, the one who endured the terror, the one who refused to let hatred define me. I walked away with a heart lighter than I could have imagined, carrying my past without letting it control me.